Welcome to the Black and White Podcast. They call me Ferdinand, the bringer of balance, leader of many disciplines, and one of your hosts of the Black and White Podcast. And I'm here with my co-host, Tim Pop. What's up, Tim? How's it going, man?
Man, I got to tell you what, it's always good to be hanging out with Ferdinand Thomas.
Y'all, this is how we greet each other every day when we talk. We talk on the phone 3-4 times a week, and every time we start the call, I'm walking out of the tunnel, and Tim, he's calling my name, and I'm like, yeah, and then he's coming out of the tunnel, and I'm calling his name. It's great energy every time. I really appreciate it.
It's a good feeling. That's exactly what it is. Straight energy. So we start our conversations like that. So we burst into different thoughts and ideas. And I have to tell you that one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life is Ferdinand Thomas. And have had a great, it's been a year. We're just coming up to a year right now that we've been talking. And we found ourselves a little bit in the Army, but we didn't really connect until recently. And I got out of the Army. I was done with my contract in 2016. So we just this last year, about a year ago, so in 2024, early 24, we got ourselves back together and found out that we had just a whole lot in common.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting running into someone that you've known for years. And because Tim and I, we've known each other for quite a few years, but we developed our relationship much stronger in the last year. However, Tim's journey, as we've talked, I've been able to get a chance to see how his journey and my journey has been like a parallel universe, right? And we have nearly 18 years apart, and many of the things that has happened in his life has also taken place in mine. Certain things that may have happened within his marriage may have also happened within mine. Certain things that he has done in fatherhood, certain things I've done in fatherhood, and they've been very, very similar, right? So it's been very interesting to see how our lives have unfold, and at certain times how certain things were happening with us at the same time. But anyway, today is episode 3 on the Black and White Podcast. I'm Ferdinand, that's Tim, and we are touching on the Khazarian presence in Israel. You know, there are a lot of scholars who are saying that the Jews of today in Israel are of Khazarian background. Then there's a bunch of scholars who are saying that they're not, right? So it's a two-sided type of argument, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's enough data to really support a concrete conclusion. However, I'll tell you what I think. I think that a bunch of those individuals who are considered Jews in Israel, let's just say, for lack of a better terminology, they will be considered pale-skinned individuals in Israel. I personally believe that they are of Khazarian descent. And one of my reasoning as to why I believe that is because I'm using the eye test and I'm paying attention to energy. What I see that has happened from specific people at high levels out of Israel, it's been appalling. The type of behavior, you know, they're practically running other countries in a shadow type of way. And, you know, it's been kind of under wraps for a really long time. Well, this is not super violent behavior, but there has been violence in the behavior in certain situations. Well, when we look at the background of the Khazarians, we know that they're a warring tribe. We know that the Khazarians were a group of people that you just didn't play with. The Khans of Mongolia didn't want any pieces of the Khazarians.
So what you're saying is they were a warring tribe. Were they violent people? Was that part of their makeup?
Well, we know that the Khazarians had a violent past, right? But what I'm doing right now is connecting the Khazarians with the modern day Jews in Israel, because I'm looking at the same behavior that's happening now. It might be happening in a totally different way. They're not riding around on horses today with big old giant swords and, you know, pow pow. It's a sword fight, right? It's a little different today. It's chemical warfare today. It's democracy today. These are the new weapons. It's you know, different types of guns, different type of lethal injections, and all kinds of different things that we see from our brothers and sisters over there in Israel. You know, it's a bunch of them doing some pretty wild and crazy stuff. And what we see from them on, let's say, in the backing of finances and so many other things, they're doing some pretty wild and crazy, out of control stuff. It's gotten so bad at this point that Iran said, you know what? We don't care how powerful y'all are. Let's go ahead and put a couple missiles in your backyard. Let's see how you handle that.
So what's happening? I mean, outside of the violence, though, when you talk, you mentioned finances, the things that are going on that are coming out of there that could be nefarious actions. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about it being part of their who they are as people, the inherent violence. I mean, are we talking about, I mean, genetic violence, or this is something that is passed down generations through the people and what they teach their children, you know, from, let's say, 100 years ago all the way through to now, the same thing that was done before in long past history.
Well, are you asking me a question, or
Yes,
or was you given?
No, asking you a question, because
What's the question?
So the question is, what we see right now with what is happening in Israel. I mean, certainly there are violent type of actions that are going on. You know, there's no question about that. But you mentioned finances, that the things that they're doing with controlling dollars, and that has an effect on people. Do you see that being more significant than weapons of old, weapons of today, that it's the money that's controlling what's happening with what they're doing?
Well, let me touch on that before I get confused on the question.
Well, it's a kind of a three-part question.
Yeah, please. Let me just do one part at a time, or I might get confused.
Sure.
So when it comes down to the world and finances, I just finished reading a book called Secrets of the Federal Reserve today. So I've been reading that book on the Mastermind Library podcast on fhtii.com. And that book exposed a whole bunch of families that come from various parts of Europe and have taken control of the world's finances. Well, what we know at this point is Israel, Vatican City, Great Britain, and the United States of America are all in bed together. Okay. Great Britain is the financial capital of the world, and Israel is the Holy Land. There's a lot going through that Holy Land. Then we got Vatican City. That's the brain of this whole thing. Right. And I'm not saying that the Pope is the brain of this whole thing. I'm just saying that when it comes down to a landmass, Vatican City is the brain of this whole thing. It might be considered the pineal gland of today's world. It might not be the pineal gland of tomorrow's world, but it is right now. Okay. So when we look at all these four countries, when it comes down to finances, they're in control of all of it. They're in control of all of the money on planet Earth in every nation.
So that's not, like you said, that's not the Pope, but it's Vatican City. It's Vatican City as a nation. It's Vatican City as a council. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Correct.
Okay. So what? As I noticed that you said something about. I don't know if I wasn't coming through. So Vatican City what you have in Vatican City is certainly you've got the religious factors, which is that leadership that brings people in, so people pay attention, and they will do what comes out of their leadership wise. But it's not necessarily the Pope where those instructions are coming from.
Well, I would definitely say that the instructions are coming from the Pope and many other world leaders, but they're getting instructions first, right? So they are making a bunch of different moves right now that looks like desperation to me. These different actions aren't getting them anywhere except creating more problems. So yeah, it's a little out of control. Now, President Obama, he exposed in his memoirs, from my understanding, that most, if not all, of the politicians at a certain level, like Congress, senators, or whatever, these guys all have like a handler from Israel. You know, what do our politicians need a battle buddy system for, with someone from Israel? You know, look at our music industry. Our music industry is controlled by what many people who's, oh yeah, it's the Jews who own the music industry, right? Israel. They're controlling our propaganda, our national narrative. They're controlling the money in multiple different ways. They're also having a strong control over ideology. This is the way that people think. And it's all been weaponized. Well, what does that sound like? That sounds like Khazarian to me.
So do you think that, I'm not sure this is the right time to bring this up, but you think that the leadership of the world, you know, we're looking at making decisions as a people, and we elect our people to go out into the world and make the decisions that we've asked them to represent us as, whether it be representatives or all the way up to the president, and also for other people in other nations. I mean, they've got their presidents, they've got they have their leadership. We have our leadership right now. It's Trump. That's who we have. That's who we have for 4 years. Nothing we can do about it. So that's, we should embrace whatever we can do about that. And 4 years from now, we'll have another decision to make. My question is, when we make these decisions and we elect these leaders, just how much do they make an actual difference to what's happening? Is it time to go into that, or do you want to put that off for another podcast?
They don't make a difference in what's happening. They follow directions. They follow orders. And the ones who don't follow orders, we usually hear about them on the 11 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news. Or we watch a military operation on live TV of them being taken out.
So who's making the
unfortunate reality of the new world order?
Who's making the
decision? People who are above the people who create. The people who are above the people who created the Federal Reserve.
So that's something we should let people explore for the time being, and you want to approach this at a later date, or we happen to walk into it like you and I often walk into different topics. It's just all this, just like, well, okay, well, let's explore that. Was it on our topic for today? Not necessarily, but it came up, so we can either go into it. I think
it's all relevant. I think it's all relevant. So let's go ahead and go into it.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So all right. So my first question that I would ask, and I know that you've got a lot of information. This guy has so much right on the top of his head. He's studied so much. I mean, we both have education. We both have formal education, and sometimes that paper makes a big difference in order to get the position that you want. You can't walk in and say, well Tim, I'm self-educated. But we're both very self-educated.
Let me stop you for a second, Tim. let's keep going before I lose this, because
well, this
I
is
got
that.
some good.
I'm about to ask you the question. So this is something that comes off the top of Ferdinand's head, and you have to appreciate this knowledge. So when I ask these questions, these are things that we've already talked about. But why is it important for us to turn back the clock and look at the Khazar Empire? What is the significance to what they're doing today, and what is it that we need to do about it? If you can work that into your answer, if you want to put that, a minute, 2 minutes down the road, go ahead.
Do me a favor and ask the question. Like, tell me whatever you want to tell me first, but then stop with the question. That way that's the last thing I hear, because I'm having trouble remembering the questions because of the comments after.
Well, that was the question.
Can you ask it one more time, please?
Why is it important to turn back the clock and look at the Khazar Empire, what they did and how they led, what they did, their violence, their leadership, but it was leadership the way they did leadership. Why is it important to look at that Khazar Empire now? What is the significance for us today, and what should we do about it?
To understand where we're going, we have to know where we have been. Okay, there are multiple claims from multiple credible people that the Khazarians struck a deal with Rome and inhabited the Holy Land, or inhabited Israel. Okay, now if we're going to call this the Holy Land, and we have people who are living there who are considered less than holy, and we don't know it, that means that their descent nature is operating in the space of these ancient people, right? Who are today, obviously they're not ancient today, but they come from an ancient source of information, right? Or at least we know of them in a certain way as far as the information goes when it comes down to Israel. Okay, so if you have a group of people who could be considered imposters in there, and their background is of a war nature, well, if that's your descent nature, your descendants will never move from that. They will always have that descent nature within their DNA. It's going to come out. There's certain triggers that will happen, no matter how much benevolence they get in childhood, no matter how much caring and nurturing they get in childhood. This is the descent nature, right? You can never move far away from your descent nature. I don't care how many generations go by. This is just the way bloodlines operate. Well, the bloodline of the Khazarians were very, very violent. Now, why is that important for us to understand? Because the story of Israel is a group of people of peace. Now, did they have wars? Did they have all these different types of things? Yes, but we don't see too many stories about them trying to take over the world in the worst ways possible. But we got a whole bunch of stories about the people of Israel, Vatican City, and Great Britain doing exactly that. Well, that to me sounds like a descent nature issue. So then I start looking at what I'm looking at in these places. Well, the people who live in Israel, who might have been there for a very, very, very long time, thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Sure.
They are more dark-skinned than me right now.
Mm-hmm.
So where did these other guys come from? How did they get there? Who are they? My answer to the question is that they are of the Khazars, north of the Caucasus Mountains. Now, to make sure that I answered your question, the reason why we need to know about the Khazars and if they are the people of Israel is because Israel is a major player nation on this earth. And if we have some of the most warring tribe of people, some of the most violent people ever running that nation that's supposed to be called the Holy Land, then we all need to know that so that we can understand what we're dealing with. Because I don't think most people understand exactly what they're dealing with. Hopefully I answered the question.
Oh, well, certainly, at least obviously that's a conversation that can go on, and there's a lot of little nooks and crannies that and branches like we could fall into. and which we can do now or we can do later. It doesn't really matter. We've got a path that we're going to go on. Are we answering the questions that, are we going down the right path where we wanted to go for today? Because I know there were some
questions that you got. Feel free to go ahead and ask them.
Well, we've got follow-up stuff from last week, which is more about race issue. And so Lisa pointed out that I was naive when I was growing up. All right, so I was naive when I was naive all the way up until I went in the Army, and somebody said, "See that? Racist." And I'm looking at him going, Are you talking to me? I didn't thought racism was gone, so this was 2008. And I thought it was gone in the 80s, 80s, 70s, 80s. That was it. We were done. Well, and she pointed out it's true. We live in a northwest suburb of Chicago, and that is that certainly sculpted who we are. And there was not a single black family in Crystal Lake. That's where I grew up, Crystal Lake. That's where Lisa, we went to the same school, high school. There was not a single black family. So now I did have exposure to different people of different color. And that's why I thought things were normal, because I went to a town that was towards Chicago, and they had, I think then I looked up the stats, and they had like 19% were and I like, by the way, I like Ferdinand's term for this, melanated people that were there. They were it was about 19% of the whole community. Most of the rest were just whatever, vanilla white. I can't tell you what area they came from historically, what their heritage was originally before being American. But we went out and we went shopping. We went shopping to clothes places. We went in grocery stores and different places like that, and saw people of color everywhere, and all different colors. It seems to me there was a lot of was it Chinese people? Well, whatever. Anyway, so it was black people, and it wasn't Mexicans at the time. We're talking about the 70s and 80s. But at the time, we walked out into the community and we saw people just talking with each other, being with each other, and having communication, holding the door for each other. So, I was told that racism was over, mostly by the TV. My parents never made a negative comment about anybody of any color, unless they were idiots. If they were idiots, then, hey, if they misbehaved, if they treated other people badly, if they did things that were against humanity, well, yes, then they were bad people. What color were they? Had nothing to do with it, because we were, I'm a mutt, but I look white. I'm German, Norwegian, Swedish, little touch Irish, I think. Help me out. I think you're on this. Anyway, so here I look like a European white person, but I'm just all I am is a mutt. So I've got a lot of different blood in me. But to me, to other people looking at me, I look white. So they're looking at me, I look white, and they're looking at me and talking to me like I'm a normal. Well, I was a kid, but they're talking to my parents and my grandparents, who, and like everything was copacetic at the time. So when I go back home, I think, I'm Crystal Lake, all white. I go back home, I'm like, oh, okay, so we've got the stuff worked out. In my mind, I never thought about it because it wasn't really an issue, because it just wasn't a thing to me. We had finally a black family come into town and said, wow, there's a black family in town. This is a first, is that all right? It's pretty cool. We're getting more diversified, right? I don't know how much I thought of it. Did I think of it that, like, to that level? It could have been to that level, but we've got some questions that we have to answer, and I want to get to them if I can find it. Here we go. And it was there was two people that had some really excellent points, and I want to go ahead.
Yeah, I said toss them on out there. Those
Yeah,
good,
yeah.
excellent.
Yep. Do you want to read them, or you just want me to? I'll tell you what they are.
Yeah, you can read them.
Lisa, you write too much. Got to focus. Well, the black guy covered that. Hustle without prejudice. People. Oh no. This was the most important thing. Ferdinand, you mentioned your grandmother, I think. Mentioned I think it was your grandmother who grew up during that period of time, 1950s Mississippi.
Yes.
So she says Ferdinand mentioned that his mother, who grew up in 1950s, that makes sense, right? To this day will not talk about a large portion of her life. A woman who is only a decade older than us, me being 58. It's easy to understand the disconnect between blacks and whites. It depends where you live, where you live, what era you live in, and so on. We're trying to understand the disconnect between blacks and whites. Racism still exists, as we talked about. So what was when she had that experience, and she was it? I get it crossed over with other things, and I should have thought about this before. So the question is, speak freely, and what exactly did your mother go through during segregation and the Jim Crow? What you mentioned also during the podcast, segregation and the Jim Crow era of Mississippi, and then how does that compare to how, well, she said black man. Well, we're talking about her experiences. Let's talk about how is that different for a black woman today?
Before you keep going, do me a favor and tell me what the question is, because I'm getting confused because it's a lot being said. I just need.
Well, it was just to give a little history to the conversation. So anyway, to think that it's ended. Please speak freely in the things you said. Your mom doesn't really talk about it that much, but she certainly talks about more than what you shared 2 weeks ago. What is her actual experience during the Jim Crow era of Mississippi segregation, the way it was back then? Let's start with that. What was that experience like?
All right. So when it comes down to that, I think the best thing that I can do right now, before I even answer that question, is to tell a little story for everybody who's listening. Imagine as a mother, right? Because this is a woman who asked this question, right? So I want her to really come into this experience, right? And I want you to be a melanated mother, an Asiatic mother, a Moorish mother, right? I want you to think about how you want your son, who's 13, 14 years old, to go and spend some time with his granddaddy down in the Delta of Mississippi. Okay. And you send your son down there. Granddad said, "Hey, yeah, baby, I'm gonna take care of your son. I'm gonna take care of my grandson. Listen, he good. Don't worry. I'm gonna make sure that he good." Then he make it down to Mississippi, and he don't really understand the culture. He don't really understand what's going on, because things is a little different where he's at up north. Let's just say he's from Chicago. Let's say he's from near the Great Lakes. Okay. And mama sent him down to Mississippi, hang out with his granddad. Let's just say that this happened in the 1950s. Okay. Well, imagine if that little boy decides he's gonna go and get a piece of candy from the store, and he see a little cute Caucasian woman. And he say, he don't even realize what he just did. This is how dangerous it was for melanated people who thought that they could whistle at a Caucasian woman, and it didn't matter what age you was. Now imagine Now we're gonna get away from the mother just for a second. All the grandfathers who are listening, imagine you got your wife and you got some of your other family members in this house in Mississippi, and you don't know that your grandson whistled at this Caucasian woman and told her she was cute or whatever, hit on her, don't even know it, right? So in the middle of the night, bang, 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 knocking on the door. Well, you come to the door and you don't even got your hands on your pistol. Your pistol is sitting over to the side or whatever. And you notice that it's 6, 7, 8 members of the clan outside. Mm-hmm. And they say, listen, we ain't really had no problems out of you before. But that boy that you got who come down here from up north, now we need him. We got to have a conversation with him. He did some things today that's a problem. Grown man, grandfather age, got a choice. I could let everybody in this house die so I could save this one person that they're going to take anyway, or I could go ahead and surrender my grandson. That's a hard decision to have to make. But if he wouldn't have made the decision, chances are him and everybody else in that house would have been hanging from the end of a tree, from the end of a rope that was tied to a tree. Might even got your feet set on fire thereafter while you was still hanging from the rope. Well, let's go back to the mother in Chicago, right? So now the mother finds out that her son was taken. Granddaddy had to get in touch with the mom and say, hey, listen, this happened. I'm so sorry, baby. I don't know where he's at. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to find out. You already know what mama is feeling like. Oh my God, my baby. Well, the story that I'm telling you about, some of y'all have heard it before, because this young brother that I'm talking about is from Chicago. Well, his mother got the body back. They found the body. Took a little while. The body was so mutilated that mama couldn't even identify her own son. This is the story of Emmett Till. I'm pretty sure many of you in Chicago have heard the story of Emmett Till. Now listen, my mama was a little girl when that took place in Mississippi. Listen, that's one of the stories that we know about. This is one of the stories that we know about where the Klan took a 13, 14-year-old little boy who made a poor decision and they made him pay the iron price for it. This is Mississippi. Please understand that if you run into different individuals like myself who could be like, yeah, you know, my mama, she from this place and she ain't really like talking about it. You know, understand that I just told you a story of someone who didn't even live in Mississippi, who suffered that price. Now think about the people who lived down there under enemy lines, behind enemy lines. Think about what they were going through. And I don't mean to speak with so much, emotion, but this is a real reality that many people have had to face. They've had to pay that price for dang near nothing over and over again, generation after generation. So a lot of those things that have taken place, those who were born in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, who might still be alive, 60s, many of them won't talk about what happened because it was that traumatic. Mm-hmm. My mother won't talk about the things that she witnessed as a little girl because she just has a hard time. This is the equivalent of really bad trauma that a person has a difficult time to explain, right? And I want to be very clear here. This is not just the Klan. This also goes back to the Khazarian presence in Israel. All of it is connected.
It's, man, I get tore up every time I hear about that story. I just and thinking that it was at the same time when your mom was growing up. And here, I mean, the Klan, they came up to Chicago and collected this boy, took him back down there, and that's the way I understand the story.
No. His mother sent him down to Mississippi to hang out with his grandfather.
Oh, okay.
The Klan came to his grandfather's house after he whistled at the Caucasian woman in the store. According to the story, it was either a whistle or some type of he hit on the woman in some type of way.
So he's growing up here. The point is he's growing up here in Mecca, in a place that's free and easy compared to the South. For people that have different color skin, up here it was a lot easier to live. So he's up here, he's living that life. And then he goes down to see his grandfather, and he makes a mistake. He makes a critical social mistake, and he didn't even know what he did wrong. I'm sure he didn't have any idea that what he was giving his appreciation for anybody, whatever, just hey, hi, pretty mama, right? Any of that would have been the same response. And so to live the life up here and then to go down there and have a completely different experience. Now, your mother was in the South at the same time.
Yes, my mother was born in the 50s.
And where was she during that period of time?
Philadelphia, Mississippi is where she's from.
Philadelphia,
Mississippi is where she's from.
Oh, Philadelphia, Mississippi. I was like, Philadelphia, that's above the Mason-Dixon, but Mississippi. So right in the same thick of all of that. And you don't have any stories from her. She just does not talk about that stuff. She doesn't talk about what life was like. She doesn't talk about what it was like trying to go down a corner store. She doesn't talk about, this is what happened back then. It's just the way it happened with everybody. That was.
I'm sorry that's a little surprising for people, but I mean.
No, I mean, I guess it doesn't seem like it would be that late in the years, in the 50s. But yeah, I guess it is surprising.
This is Bill's mother on the screen, just so you know.
We all it was important socially, and I know it doesn't do justice to the whole situation, but we all watched the series Roots, but that period of time that happened hundreds, you're talking about way back. So to us it was like, oh, well, that was way back then. Thank God that's not happening today. But it was still going on in the South in the 50s. I mean, it wasn't slavery. It wasn't in that same respect, but disrespect.
It's still going on right now. It's not something that stopped in the 1950s. It's something that got worse in the 1950s, and it's still happening to this day in the Deep South. It has not been cured. It's still a problem down there. It's just more than likely not as extreme as it used to be. The Klan is still in full operation in the South, and I would even go as far to say that the Klan is still in full operation throughout the entire United States.
Well, and that's the I mean, it seems like it's just a tiny little extremist group, but it's bigger than that.
Is that a question?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that, people would have to do their research if they want to know how big the Ku Klux Klan organization is.
I don't think people necessarily even have to the whole white supremacy thing, which it just seems like it's this tiny little faction of people, but you can put them all in the same category because they would have the same attitude towards somebody that has darker skin than them. I would say any of those extremists that have that attitude, they wear the swastika. And there's people that actually do that. I was like, no, this is just for TV, right? I mean, like, this isn't really happening. Yeah, it's really happening. that's really out there. But they have the same attitude towards anybody that has, well, I mean, not only people that have darker skin, you know, let's say just that makes it easy, but, you know, Jews and so on. But, you know, so we're talking about the same type of people, the same group of people, but they bleed over, their attitude bleeds over onto the rest of the public.
You see that right there, the picture? That's for everybody out there who's watching, that's a 14-year-old boy who was from Chicago. This is a 14-year-old boy. His mama couldn't even recognize him. And I forgot who it was who insisted that the casket stay open. I think it might have been his mother. But the casket stayed open so that the world could see this. This is so, so sad. Even though we're talking about something that happened about 70 years ago, almost exactly 70 years ago. We're looking at a picture of it in this, and it still brings there's an emotional connection that I have looking at this, because this could be my son. My son's 13 years old, Elijah. I was 13 years old at one time. I was 14 years old. This could have been me. His mama couldn't even recognize him. Could you imagine sending your child away to go hang out with granddaddy, build, make a connection with your family down there in the South, and you get your child back in a goddamn body bag?
Were the men that did this ever held responsible for it?
I believe that the men who committed this act, they never had to pay any price for it until they were in their old age or they were dead. I forgot how the exact story goes, but the actual day in court, they walked scot-free. Like nothing even happened.
Just no, I mean, my mind goes there.
And the grandfather, he did something that very few people did during that time. He got on the stand and he told the truth. See, many melanated people during that time, they're not getting on no stand against a Caucasian person. That's a death sentence, not just for you, probably for the rest of your family too. And he got up there, stood up, and pointed at the people who he believed did whatever they did, because obviously they did a whole lot. For somebody to look like that, you had to do a whole lot. You had to beat this person within an inch of their life and then do more.
This is Emmett.
This is Emmett Till. This is a 14-year-old boy right here that you can't even recognize. This is a real picture. This is not AI. This is not none of that. For everybody out there who's watching, this is real. This happened. It happened in 1955. So when we look at the influence of the world powers has created race wars. You and I, Tim, we've talked about these race wars. Yeah. This is a part of those race wars right here. Yeah. You and I coming together for this podcast, this is some of the beginning times of the end of this race war that has been putting our people in a really poor position. Really, really poor position. We shouldn't be fighting with each other. We're supposed to be building with each other. Right. We're supposed to be loving each other, having compassion and empathy for each other. And what we're seeing on a consistent basis is a race war being perpetuated by a group of people who don't produce anything.
Well, and we talked about the machine that backs this up, and the reason that this is all happening, and that it's not just division, black and white division. It's division, period. Yeah. It's there's a lot of reasons that these things are put out there, and somebody's going to come on here and call us conspiracy theorists, right? Well, you know what? Conspiracies do happen, and they're made to be secret. Well, how do you discover that stuff? Well, first you got to start out with an idea that it actually happened. Oh, you got to have a theory. Okay, so let's just say that saying the phrase conspiracy theory is not a bad thing in itself. Now, that it's not true until it's after it's been proven, right? So it's just an idea. As that idea and what we're talking about and what we're seeing right now, and it's black and white, Democrats and Republicans. Oh my God, why do Democrats and Republicans fight? That doesn't make any sense. But sure enough, I mean, it's made to be to the point where it's, hey, well, let's go out and call names and get in their face and be all, just always just like going after the dig, going after the bite for what it is. Like, you know what? We're all Americans. Same thing with black and white. We're all Americans. And this is not a choice to where we are now. No, you don't like it, go ahead and leave. No. First, we got to work together is what we got to do. We got to say, everybody is okay in this situation. Take a look at the integrity of the person. That's where judgment is. And if these people are all good people, then why are we fighting against them? Whether it's a Republican, Democrat, black person, Asian, anybody that's a citizen, and anybody that's actively working to become a citizen, because we take in the tired, meek, and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm saying is, when people are crossing the border and they're looking to be part of this country, it's because of how great this country is. And there is a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to how great this country is, but it's really only great if we're doing it together. It's really only great if it's great for everybody that's here, that's a citizen here. And man, I tell you what, I've met a lot of people that are not my color, and man, honestly, I cannot think of one that was like a bad person. I'm sure criminals are out there.
So let me touch on that.
I know that. I know they're out there.
So I'm gonna touch on that, right? When it comes to this country, I respect what you just said. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. In my opinion, there is nothing great about this country, and there hasn't ever been anything great about this country for its entire existence. Now, is there great things about this land? Absolutely. My family and my ancestors have been on this land for as long as it's been here. There is much greatness with this land, but this country is a fugazi. This country is a joke.
I get you.
This country is a circus, and it's a whole bunch of clowns running around in it, right? That's what this country is. I don't believe in this country. I do believe in this land and the descent nature of the people who are indigenous to this land. But yeah, this country is a monopoly game.
Well, definitely, I'm looking through rose-colored glasses. I understand what you're saying, because I am looking through rose-colored glasses. Absolutely true. When I take a look at the way I grew up and the people that were around me, I was surrounded by a different element. There wasn't well, I mean, there was a social difficulty because we had these groups so there's always infighting, right? So there was freaks, jocks, frocks, so you're a member of a different group. Everybody was white, by the way, but you had to have something to struggle about. This is nothing. I mean, this is ridiculousness. The rest of it, though, is rose-colored glasses. This is the best possible place to live. I don't know of a place that would be better, but to me, it seems like all the elements are here that we could be the best country on the planet. I mean, I'd like to achieve what I had in my childhood as my mentality of where we came from, what we supposedly were, and the greatest country ever, freedom. Hey, well, total freedom. Well, a lot of countries will come in and say, I don't know what this big deal is. Why you Americans say freedom. It is different here than it is pretty much anywhere else in the world. Are we free as men? I mean, when you take a look at it, we're all put to work for things and expected to do things and pay an amazing amount of taxes for things. The burden is on us. And who's doing the physical work? Man, I've done a physical job my entire life, my entire career. So, I look at America as it could be great. So what does it take to make it great?
So there's so many ways that I could so many directions I could go in to answer that question.
No,
What
I
does
know.
it
I
take?
didn't intend for it to be easy.
What does it take to make America great again? This is a very
And again, let's say for the first time. Let's go with your idea that it's never been great. What do we do to make America great like we were told it was? So for the first time ever, let's make America as the best country it could be and the best country for its citizens. What do we do? What does that look like? What are the tools?
the very first step would be to turn over full control of the nation to the Moorish Science Temple of America. That would be the very first step. Return the control of the government back over to the indigenous people of this land who had control of it prior to George Washington. That would be the first thing. The very next thing is the Moors leading the charge on helping the people and the land heal. Both the land and the people need healing. Both of the land and the people are in a high disease state. RFK just came on television not too long ago and said that 60% of the American population is heavily diseased, right? These are problems that have to be dealt with. Now, in addition to that, people like myself and a team of others who are very knowledgeable in herbology, whole health, allopathic medicine, Chinese medicine, and so many other disciplines within health. We sit down and we identify what is going to be allowed in those grocery stores. We identify how these hospitals are going to be reformed and how they're going to be ran in the near future, reshaping the education that children are receiving, re-looking at how a religious leader is going to be able to, what the process is for a religious leader to be able to run a church or a temple or a mosque, right? These individuals need to be vetted a little different because we've got a whole lot of people who are teaching and preaching and politicking that should not be in those positions, and they are leading people to the slaughter. So we've got to get rid of those types of individuals, not necessarily eliminate them, but we've got to go ahead and move them to some other type of work that suits their energy because they clearly are not prepared for proper leadership. So this is a leadership thing that needs to happen, and it needs to happen from the indigenous people of this land. They need full control over the land, and this is how we get things back in balance.
So why is it, actually didn't expect you to go there, but why is it that, let's just say you're saying let Moors take care of leadership. What is it about Moors, the more belief system, I guess, belief system, would that be accurate? The more belief system.
They're one of the few people, they're one of the few groups of people on the earth who actually know the truth. But at the same time, the Moors, as well as other indigenous tribes, are indigenous to this land. There shouldn't be people who migrated here to this land having control over the resources and dang near the decision making of the people. That's insanity. No, it should be the people who are indigenous of this land, and they are still here. I'm one of them.
So there's a lot of ground to cover between here and there, and there's a lot of interesting evidence that illustrates that as an absolute truth. And there a lot of ground to cover to get from here to there.
Yes.
Because it's one of the what we're talking about is, and from what I've looked at, and I'm just looking at, and then for me, I do the numbers, and when I do the numbers, it seems like it comes up pretty short, and that all the black people of America did not all come from Africa. It was just not. It was not the thing. I know there's a lot of people going, "What? What are you talking about, man? I took history. I know that. I know history." Well, who writes history books? The winners of the war at the time write the history books. Anyway, it's a big twisted field out there right now. I'm not sure exactly, because I was taught one way, so how am I supposed to just embrace a completely new idea? But this stuff is out there. It's out there. The documentation is out there to illustrate what exactly Ferdinand is talking about on this. So we got to keep digging into it. So
let me touch something real quick, right? So I'm reading from Koran questions for Moorish Americans, right? Koran questions for Moorish children. And I'm reading question number 90. Can a man be a Negro, Black, colored, or Ethiopian? And the answer to that is no. Well, this is what the noble prophet brought us to help us understand what was really happening, right? So I know that the show is called Black and White Podcast. I want everybody to understand that that's more so about us moving in black and white and occasionally moving in the gray, but not because Tim is white and Ferdinand's black, because Tim ain't white and Ferdinand ain't black.
Just right? A fun play.
It's a fun play on words, yeah, right? Yeah. So I want everybody out there to understand Ferdinand doesn't describe people as black because that's a scarlet letter. I try not to describe people as white because that's also a scarlet letter. The people who came over here weren't white. They were Italians. They were they were Germans. They were Dutch, right? But they weren't white. They weren't black, right? And there wasn't too many Africans who came here. There was a whole lot of Africans who were already here. And when I say Africans, don't think of Africa as the continent of Africa, because that means you're thinking about it from a perspective of today. Think about what Africa may have been many, many, many moons ago. Well, we might be talking about all of the land masses, because see, my ancient ancestors had control over this whole earth at one point in time. So we didn't call it Africa. Obviously, Africa is the new name. We had another name for it. However, what we do need to know at this point is that we're all here now. It is what it is at this point. We do need to know the history so we can make better decisions in the future, so we can make better decisions in the present. But we also need to live in the reality that we're all here. We need to live in the reality that Tim is my brother and I'm Tim's brother. And Tim's mama don't look nothing like my mama. Tim's mama and my mama come from two totally different places, but that's still my brother right there. Mm-hmm. I still got love, compassion, and empathy for him and his family. I often have conversations here or there with Miss Elena, with his wife. Mm-hmm. I've been able to have some beautiful conversations with his son, Nathan.
Yep.
Listen, everybody on this planet is my brother and sister. Okay. This is a mentality that we need to adopt. Now, that's going to require us to let go of hundreds and thousands of years of rape, murder, theft, and so many other things that are extremely atrocious to human behavior. But the reality is they happened. It's time for us to change perspective on regress trauma and grow through it. I'm not saying that everybody should just, we should just be less than empathetic about people's trauma. No, everybody's got the trauma. Everybody's got certain perspectives on who they believe that they are, their perspective on self as a result of these traumas that have taken place. But see, once we start operating in authenticity, love, compassion, empathy, peace, harmony, humility, responsibility, sacrifice, right? Whatever my 5 are. Responsibility, accountability, humility, and sacrifice. The 5th one's slipping right now. However, when we're moving in these virtues, we put ourselves in a position to free ourselves of the hate, to free ourselves of the fear, to free ourselves of the guilt and the shame and the despair. All of this starts to dissipate. And we start to see Tim for what he is, a beautiful man who's got a beautiful family, who does beautiful things for people. I can see those things now because I became it inside first. I didn't sit down and focus on, oh, well, you know, I think Tim's family might have had slaves and all. Listen, man, sit down and be quiet, man. You don't need to worry about if Tim's family had slaves. It doesn't matter if Tim's family had all the slaves. It doesn't matter if Ferdinand's family had the slaves, because make no mistake about it, there was melanated people who had slaves. It doesn't matter who had slaves and who didn't. What matters now is authenticity, love, compassion, and empathy. Becoming those things within. And what happens as a result is we see it without. We see it in our existential reality. Now what happens is when I'm talking to Tim, I'm not triggered by maybe some despair or some fear or whatever that he might be displaying. Now what I see is that happening, and I have love for him as a result. But I'm really starting to pick up on when he's speaking in love, when he's speaking in compassion and empathy. And I give energy to those. I feed that wolf instead of feeding the wolf over there of hate, of despair, of lewdness, murders and thefts. No, I'm not feeding that wolf anymore. Forget about that. I'm feeding this love wolf. I'm feeding this authenticity wolf. But I'm also learning the truth about everything that has happened. But I'm not allowing the truth to control me. I'm just utilizing the truth to make a better way, to construct, to blaze a new path.
You know, and the subtleties are there, and that's where if you don't start out with that type of compassion, I like to kind of it's a word I like. I've been using it a lot more, is righteousness, and it's not in a religious term at all, but it's trying to be a righteous person, which is looking for those qualities. It sums up those qualities. And you know, man, I make mistakes just like everybody else. And I have difficulties in life. I come across things that are puzzling to me. And man, I'll tell you, it's good to have a friend that you can talk to, that you can share these things. Now, if Ferdinand was burdened with these things that were outside of that life, and if he had he looked at every white man with hatred. If I was to try to talk to, if he came across me and he was one of those people like, well, what's the matter with you? Just having some difficulty. And if I was to go into some of that, it would be all for the wrong reasons. It would be, oh, well, you're just, you're privileged and this and that. Like, not 1 second of taking a look at what is the difficulty I'm looking at. Now, if I do that with Ferdinand, I'm talking to him and he says, sounds like you have something on your mind. What's going on? He's asking me a real question, a righteous question. And I can say, man, I don't want to pull you into it, because it's just, it's going to go away. It's something that'll get fixed. Well, I'm here to talk about it if you want, because it sounds like you need to talk about it. All right, here it is. And I can lay into him. It can be harsh language. I'm myself. I come from construction. I come from the military. My parents probably wish that I had more of the educator in me, that I had clean language. I don't know. I actually don't know how I keep clean language here. But anyway, I talk with my own language when I'm talking to Ferdinand. And if I get upset, he just sits and listens. He listens to me. He doesn't like, what are you getting all worked up for? What are you riled up for? He's not asking me that. He's asking, wow, okay, well, so have you thought about what you're going to do in order to fix that situation? I mean, it sounds like it's kind of serious, but it's serious, but not like in a life-threatening way. And, just to be able to talk to somebody, be able to have a conversation like that, we should be able to do that all the way across the whole bandwidth. I said, hey, not to Ferdinand. I said this on Facebook. I wrote, why is everybody arguing? Can't we all just get along? holy shit, I got laughed at. I was laughed at for trying to say that I wanted to get along with everybody, and that's my mode. That's who I am. And I think that we could be better people if we made effort instead of always having conflict and always looking for what the worst is in somebody and always looking for what weakness you can exploit in somebody. How about having a little righteous conversation and just saying, hey man, what, it looks like something's bothering you, what's going on? Or just say hello, just hold the door. Why is it become something that everybody's got to have their heads buttoned, and now we're not talking about something this we're talking about something that goes back hundreds of years, thousands of years. And here we're still dealing with today. Aren't we human beings that, well, okay, some people don't believe in the whole moon thing, but we sent somebody to the moon. If we did that, can't we just find ourselves as people and look at one another and it doesn't matter. I'm a centrist, so I have to say I'm okay with Republicans and I'm okay with Democrats, because both sides on the extreme sides, the far right and the far left, they have some really crazy ideas, and I don't necessarily agree with all that, and I guess that's why I'm a centrist. But I mean, that's how you believe in something. Religion. You're a Catholic, you're a Buddhist, you're a Lutheran, you believe it, you're a Muslim, which is, I think Muslim is the biggest, I think that's the biggest religion on the planet. And talk about some misconceptions about that. But all of these things, that's a matter of faith. And that's you looking at a book and saying, you know what, we don't know the truth. So I'm going to take this book and I'm going to take this book as truth. I don't have to preach it to anybody. I'm just going to internalize this, and I'm going to hold my faith in most religions have God. I'm going to use this as my connection to God and how it is that I should treat other people. And all of those books, and for me, it's King James Bible is what I was and grew up with. But all of those books preach love and connection, respect. All of those elements are in those books. Man, it doesn't matter which book you read, but don't forget the guy that's on the other side reading a book that looks like it's different than yours. It's the same book. We should be able to all get along. We should be able to all look at it and say, wow, it says that we should love one another. How about that? Well, that's just unique to our Bible, right? No, it's in every Bible, pretty much. I mean, I'm sure there's some differences. Ferdinand could probably clear that up for me. But my point being, it doesn't matter what your core belief system is. If you're looking at people with love and respect, then you should be able to get along with everybody that you come across in life. I drive my wife nuts. I drive her nuts. She's like, oh, no, I don't want to go to the store with you today. Why not? I want to get in and out, and you're gonna like talk to everybody. It's who I am. It's just, it's part of my makeup. But and that's not to say that's how you got to talk to everybody you come across. But how about just having a little bit of love and compassion for the people that you come across? When you look at them, if you're having a bad day, don't let them know that you're having a bad day. They don't know you. So you don't come across like, what are you at? And get that look on your face and be all mad because somebody else came into your space. Like, you know what? You're the one that's having a bad day. How about you just wipe it off your face for a second, fake it for a minute. Maybe you'll actually start to feel a little happier anyway. Put an expression out. And this is something we talk about a lot. The law of attraction. And there is no law of attraction if you're talking about infighting between different groups. We're in a race. It's a good day for the race. Good day for the races. What race is that? The human race. That's all I'm saying.
Man. So I go to Facebook while you were talking, and I'm looking at. So I go to my notifications, and I'm like, oh wow, So I guess the title of this episode got the whole live kicked off of Facebook.
Oh, no kidding. So we're not even live?
Well, we're still live, but we're just live on other platforms right now. I just sent you the. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put them on the screen for everybody to see, because I want everybody to get a look at this.
Wow.
Here. All right. 1 second. I'm putting it up on the screen right now. I want y'all to see this. Like, we're not doing nothing against nobody. We're not creating no problems against anybody. And they just pulled our live down because of what we have on the screen. Well, where is this? I need to open it up in this program over here in preview. Okay, now it'll open. There it is.
Well, I went to my page and I'm showing that we're up on the page.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure Facebook is going. Eventually, they're gonna pull that down once they see the Khazarian and Israel part. That says a lot. I want everybody to really get an understanding of what just happened here. Okay, this is a podcast where we've had the maximum amount of people who's been listening on this podcast, according to the counter, was 4 people. Okay, in the last hour and 15 minutes, and Facebook, before we even finished the live, it's got Khazarian and Israel in the title. Boom, boom, it's gone. Just like that.
Can we start a new one? Take out those words and just start a new one? Is that possible?
I'm pretty sure that we well, I know we can. We could. I'm not banned from posting live videos, but I mean, we've been on for an hour and 13 minutes now, so it's all good. But anyway, I just wanted to show everybody that, I'm going to go ahead and give my brother Tim the floor so he can give his closing remarks. We're about to go ahead and close it down, y'all.
Yeah, we might as well. I mean, for me, there's a lot of people on Facebook that were looking forward to this. So it's kind of unfortunate that it's not on there. Maybe we can change the title of it and repost it. Maybe we can post it as a recorded podcast. But I've come across a lot of varied people in my life, varied in attitude, varied in structure, history, where they come from. I've done a lot of things that have exposed me to a lot of people, and I just when I look at what we're doing here as human beings, I'll tell you, I would accept. Man, I didn't know that I didn't know that this was going to be a campaign thing, but I'll tell you, I anything that's better than what we have. I have not voted with confidence in a presidential election almost ever. It just seems like it's always making a choice between the lesser of two evils, and you can see the effect of the workings behind all of the what we call leadership. We don't see the leadership. We don't know who the leadership is. We are given the idea, then the thought that we have elected people that are looking out for our best interests, our most highest ideals. And I think we need to consider that a little bit closer and take a look at what that is. And then in the meantime, unity. I mean, we're here. We're in the U.S. Where are we going to go? This is it. Maybe what Ferdinand said was right. Maybe this country's never been truly great, because part of it being because of the history. Certainly seems to me that we could do things that would make it a better place and have what we're expecting as citizens of this country, of this ground, of this land. And we should be able to put ourselves together and find a way to respect one another. It's I just think it's got to be right around the corner. Otherwise, I mean, there's some bad things coming up. There's no question about that, and I'm not blind to that. those things are going to be challenging for a lot of people. We're going to be crossing over and making some suggestions of what people should do. People that are watching the podcast, people that pay attention to what we're talking about. We're gonna cover in, it's gonna a lot of it's gonna look like prepper stuff, but it's not really. We're certainly not going to be promoting any products or anything like that. So don't think for a second we're looking at monetizing this. But I will say that it is important to make sure that you and your family, and you're protecting your family. That's what it's all about. That you and your family have a way and means to get from this point to that point, because we're going to have some rough years here. And I don't think that matters what you believe in or where it comes from or what the origin is. The truth is the writing's been on the wall, so to speak, for quite a while. I know we're going to be okay. My family, we're going to be okay. I want to share as much as I can. Ferdinand's going to share what he does, and I'm going to be incorporating some of those things into my life more so than I ever have. Gardening, canning, drying, those things we'll talk about those, I think, a little bit on the podcast. Ferdinand also has some accessibility to that on his own things that he speaks about. But I'll tell you, this is what it comes down to, and I'm gonna land it right now for me. Look around you. You have some of the best people. They're connected to you right now, and you know who they are. You know who the toxic people are. You know who the people that are taken away from what you could be as a person. And maybe it's time to let those people go, because they're making your life harder. If you haven't helped them yet, if you've been talking to them and trying to help them through every problem, and you've done everything you can to speak to them, and you're like, I don't know what else I can do. You know what? You need to focus on yourself right now. It's important that you focus on yourself right now, and focus on other righteous people that are behind you for what you do, behind you for your ideals, and they're Muslim and they don't care that you're a Lutheran Christian. They're Catholic, and but they look at things in a way that they're open-minded enough to be able to look at people as for their, on the righteousness scale, let's say, just so to speak, how good people are as people. That's where the focus needs to be. And I know, Ferdinand, I got to tell you, man, I really appreciate you. I'm very happy that you're in my life. I love the things that we talk about. I'm glad we're finally doing this podcast together. It's going to grow. It'll get better. I haven't spent a lot of time on video since Army. In fact, most of that was interviewing. I was off the camera, so I wasn't even part of the camera thing. So this is a learning process for me too. But I'll get it together. I'll be able to make that connection, and we're gonna figure out how to make this thing appear on Facebook, regardless of the title. Thank you, Ferdinand, very much for your time that you spend with everything, your research and things that you do that are off the phone with me. But when we talk on the phone and you have the culmination of your efforts, I just really appreciate you as a person. And I think that that is something that more of us, we need to find more people in our lives that make us feel that way. More people in our life. You can't have Ferdinand. I'm taking all his extra time, so you can't have him. But you can certainly connect with some people that make an effort to connect with them. Make an effort to be a better person for yourself and for the rest of humanity. Whatever you can do to do better for yourself, whatever you can do better to make life better for other people on the planet. Especially, we're talking about the U.S. right now. You can be a little selfish. Just talk about the U.S. right now. Let the policymakers deal with the overseas shit. I swore. Listen, that's the real me. I'm here. I'm happy to be here. I love to share whatever it is that I can share. You can take it or leave it. You can, say I'm an idiot that doesn't know anything. That's fine. You can even type it in, put it out there on Facebook, type it in there. Oh, I watch that Facebook and Tim doesn't know anything what he's talking about. I don't care. That's fine. You have your opinion, your attitude. You can have that opinion and attitude. I'm okay with that. But in the meantime, live righteous. Be who you can. Be the best person you can be. Ferdinand, closing remarks?
Thank you very much, Tim. Really appreciate you. I love all of our conversations. I really enjoyed the time that I'm able to spend with you. There's a lot of wisdom that you've imparted on me. I've been able to make certain changes in my life from what you have gifted me in knowledge, and I hope that some of the knowledge that I have has helped you to make changes in your life as well. And this is the energy that we need to have with our brothers and sisters. Listen, everybody out here is our brothers and sisters who are part of one family, the human family, right? This is the family of humanity, right? There's no colors in it, even though some of us got more or less color or whatever, but it's just one family. And when we come to understand that, we can start making some decisions that are better, that are not so influenced by individuals who are interested in siphoning off our energy by getting us to work against each other. No, we need to work together, but we also need to have the truth. So this is the reason why we came with episode 3 of the Khazarian presence in Israel. Now, understand that there is a certain amount of evidence that we would like to move forward with, but when it's not there, we got to look at the other pieces of evidence that is there. The eye test is always one. We can look at genetics. We can look at quite a few different things. But what I will say is this. My belief is that the individuals who could be considered pale skin and they are in Israel today, I believe that a large majority of them are of Khazarian bloodline. And their behavior, in my personal opinion, is right in line with what the Khazarians' behavior was many, many, many hundreds of years ago, right? So we can do a part 2 one of these days, right? But I do want to consistently give my appreciation and my thanks to Tim. And I want to definitely give my thanks and appreciation to Miss Lena, right, for allowing Tim to do this, because I know he was probably like, "Hey, Laney, what you think?" And he's like, "Well, you should do what you love to do what you like to do, right? You just do it with class, right?" I appreciate you, Miss Laney, for letting them through, right? Because Tim and I have been talking about this for a long time. Well, listen, y'all be blessed and expose your gift.